Your daughter, she's there, alone, with her. Kiko the parrot's shrill cry echoed through the mansion, cutting through the oppressive silence of the night. Tycoon Arthur felt his heart pound, the whiskey glass trembling in his hands as cold sweat trickled down his forehead. He looked at the bird, then at the dusty portrait of his beloved little Sophia, whom his wife Helena insisted had died in a tragic accident years ago. Kiko never lied. That phrase, repeated with desperate urgency and the bird's eyes fixed on his daughter's portrait, made Arthur question every truth he had been told, and what he discovered next shook the foundations of his fortune, his marriage, and his very soul, revealing unimaginable cruelty. Arthur let the glass fall with a dull thud onto the Persian rug, the amber liquid spreading like a dark stain that seemed to mirror the darkness beginning to invade his chest. "Kiko, what did you say?" he whispered, his voice hoarse, almost unrecognizable. The parrot, still perched on the shoulder of the bronze statue, turned its head, its bright black eyes fixed on Arthur's pale face. "Sophia, alive, with her," Kiko repeated with the same urgency, as if trying to pierce the fog of denial that enveloped Arthur. A wave of cold ran down the Tycoon's spine. Alive? With her? Helena? Arthur's mind reeled, trying to reconcile the image of the daughter he believed to be dead with the bird's insistent voice. Helena had always been so convincing, so firm in her grief, or so it seemed. But Kiko was more than a pet. He was a silent confidant, an attentive observer of every nuance in that house. Never before had he uttered something so disturbing, so directly linked to Arthur's deepest wound. Arthur knelt slowly, his knees creaking, and reached out to the parrot. "Kiko, please, tell me more. Where is Sophia? Who is she?" he asked. His voice choked with emotion. Kiko tilted his head, then let out a sound that seemed like a lament, a mix of sadness and frustration, before repeating, softer this time, "Secret. Hers. Sophia. Trapped. Trapped." The word hit Arthur like a lightning bolt. Trapped by Helena. The idea was grotesque, monstrous. Helena, his wife, the woman with whom he shared his life, capable of such cruelty. He stood up, staggering, feeling the mansion, once a sanctuary of luxury, transform into a prison of lies. Every opulent piece of furniture, every work of art, now seemed to hide a dark secret. He needed air, clarity. He walked to the window, opening it to the night breeze, but the coolness did not alleviate the fire burning in his chest. The image of Sophia, laughing and full of life, danced before his eyes, superimposed on the image of Helena, cold and calculating. How could he have been so blind? The pain of grief had been a thick fog, a curtain that prevented him from seeing the truth. Helena always consoled him, always reinforced the idea of the accident, always kept him away from any deeper memories of his daughter. At the time, Arthur interpreted this as a way to protect him, to help him move on. Now it seemed like a ploy. He closed his eyes, replaying every gesture, every word from Helena in recent years. The speed with which she got over the loss, the way she avoided Sophia's name, the subtle disdain in her gaze when he got lost in memories. All of this, previously ignored, now fit into a macabre puzzle. Arthur's heart tightened with a mix of dread and an almost unbearable hope. Sophia could be alive, his little Sophia. The bedroom door opened softly, and Helena entered, wrapped in a silk robe, her blonde hair impeccably styled even at that hour. Her blue eyes, always so distant, swept the room, stopping at the broken glass on the floor and, for an instant, at Kiko. "Arthur, what happened here? Are you all right?" she asked, her voice soft, but with a tone of control that Arthur had never noticed before, or perhaps in his blindness had chosen to ignore. He turned, his face a mask of pain and confusion, desperately trying to hide the whirlwind of dread and hope that consumed him. "Just a small accident, darling. Distraction." "Don't worry," he replied, his voice firmer than he expected. A Herculean effort to maintain the facade. Kiko, on the statue's shoulder, watched the scene in silence, with a wisdom that seemed to transcend that of a mere bird, like a silent judge. The game had begun. Arthur watched Helena walk away, the bedroom door closing with a soft click, but to him it sounded like the snap of a trap. The air seemed to thin, and he put a hand to his chest, feeling his heart pound erratically. The facade he had just erected, the lie about a small accident, weighed on him like a mountain. How could he feign normalcy when his entire world had just been turned upside down? Helena's image, so calm and controlled, contrasted brutally with the storm raging within him. He turned to Kiko, who still watched him with those piercing eyes. "Kiko, are you sure?" Arthur whispered, his voice almost inaudible. The parrot tilted its head, let out a low chirp, and repeated with a clarity that chilled Arthur to the bone, "Sophia. Trapped. With her." There was no doubt. Kiko's insistence, the way he seemed to understand the gravity of his own words, was undeniable. A wave of tenderness and dread washed over Arthur. Sophia. His little Sophia, the girl he believed he had lost forever. Hope, once a thin thread, now became a tight knot in his throat, mixing with anger and disbelief. How could Helena, how could the woman he loved, whom he trusted, whom he placed above all else, have committed such an unimaginable atrocity? The pain of grief he had carried for years seemed insignificant compared to the pain of betrayal. He needed to act, but with caution. Helena was cunning, and any misstep could put Sophia in even greater danger. Arthur began to pace the room, his heavy footsteps on the soft carpet. His eyes swept over the objects, searching for something, anything, that could be a starting point. The mansion, once a refuge, now seemed a labyrinth of secrets. He approached the bookshelf, running his fingers over the leather spines, his mind working feverishly. Where would she hide her? How would she keep such a big secret for so long? He remembered how Helena always diverted the subject of Sophia, how her photos had gradually disappeared from family albums, how she always encouraged him to move on, to leave the past behind. At the time, he saw it as support. Now, it was a spiderweb, meticulously woven to trap him in the darkness of ignorance. A solitary tear ran down his face, not from sadness for the loss, but from shame for his own blindness. He needed proof, something concrete that he could confront Helena with, without her being able to deny it. But where to look? The mansion was vast, full of nooks and crannies. And Helena, always one step ahead, always controlling everything. Arthur felt a shiver. He needed to be as calculating as she was, but with a very different purpose: justice and love for his daughter. Kiko flew from the statue's shoulder and landed softly on Arthur's shoulder, nuzzling his head against his cheek. The bird's touch was a silent reminder that he was not alone in this fight. Arthur stroked Kiko's head with a trembling finger. "We'll find Sophia, my friend, I promise," he murmured, his voice laden with a new determination. The night wore on, but for Arthur, sleep was an impossibility. He spent the following hours planning, reviewing every detail, every conversation, every absence of Helena. The game had begun, yes, and Arthur was determined to win, not for fortune, but for his daughter's life. He knew it would be a painful and dangerous journey, but the image of Sophia, alive and waiting for him, was the flame that ignited his courage. He took a deep breath, the decision crystal clear in his heart. The truth would come out. Arthur knew the truth would not come easily. Helena was a fortress of dissimulation, and every move he made would need to be calculated with a surgeon's precision. The night dragged on, and the Tycoon, unable to close his eyes, began to draw up a detailed plan. His first task would be to investigate the mansion's surroundings, the places Helena frequented, the people she communicated with. He needed a team, but he couldn't trust anyone from his own vast company, where Helena had eyes and ears everywhere. Betrayal was a poison that had spread through his life, and he felt the need to purify every corner. Kiko, still on his shoulder, let out a soft, "Sophia, there." Arthur stroked him. "Yes, Kiko, she's there, and we're going to find her." The parrot's voice was a constant reminder, a compass in the darkness. Arthur thought about the household staff. There was the housekeeper, Donna Lucia, an elderly and loyal woman who had worked for the family for decades. She had always been discreet, but her eyes saw everything. Would it be risky to involve her? What if Helena had manipulated her too? Distrust was a heavy burden, but painfully necessary. He decided to start with something less risky. In the following days, Arthur observed Helena with renewed attention, every gesture, every phone call, every outing. He noticed that she spent a considerable amount of time in her personal office, a room she kept locked and where he rarely entered. There was also a strange frequency in her visits to a more secluded family property, an old country house that had been under renovation for years. Helena always found an excuse to go there alone, and Arthur, in his former blindness, had never questioned it. Now every detail seemed like a warning sign. The pain of betrayal was excruciating, but the hope of reuniting with Sophia was a balm. Arthur felt like a detective in his own life, a role he had never imagined playing. He began to make discreet calls, contacting an old college colleague, a retired private detective known for his discretion and effectiveness. He explained the situation in a veiled manner, without mentioning names, just the urgent need to investigate a delicate family matter. His friend, a man of integrity, promised to help, understanding the implicit gravity in his tone. Meanwhile, Arthur maintained the mask. He smiled at Helena, praised her choices. He feigned interest in her social plans. Every interaction was an act, every word a carefully calculated lie, not to arouse suspicion. Helena, in turn, seemed satisfied with the apparent normalcy. Her cold eyes revealed nothing, and her controlled posture was unshakable. Arthur felt a shiver. Her coldness was the most compelling proof of her cruelty. One day, while Helena was out, Arthur decided to take a risk. With Kiko on his shoulder, he approached her office. The door was, as always, locked, but Kiko, with an unexpected movement, flew to a small frame above the door where there was a decorative key. "Key! Hers! Secret!" chirped the parrot. Arthur felt a shock. The key! He took it, his heart pounding. It was an old, wrought-iron key that he had never noticed. With trembling hands, he inserted it into the lock. The soft click of the door opening echoed in the silence of the mansion, revealing the secrets Helena had guarded so carefully. The soft click of the door opening echoed in the silence of the mansion, revealing the secrets Helena had guarded so carefully. Arthur pushed the door slowly, the creak almost inaudible, but to him it sounded like thunder. The air inside the office was heavy, a mix of old dust and a floral perfume Helena wore, a scent that once brought him comfort, and now only repulsion. Kiko, still on his shoulder, pressed against his neck, as if sensing the tension emanating from Arthur. The office was different from what Arthur imagined. It wasn't a common workspace, but a sanctuary of coldness and order. Impeccable bookshelves, not a single volume out of place, a polished mahogany desk, empty of any personal papers, just a switched-off computer and a gold pen. No photos, no objects that revealed passion or memory. It was Helena's perfect reflection, beautiful, organized, but devoid of warmth. Arthur began to search, his hands trembling slightly. He opened drawers, rummaged through folders with the company's financial documents. Everything in order, nothing suspicious at first glance. Frustration began to tighten its grip on him. Where would the proof be? How could Helena be so meticulous in hiding her cruelty? Kiko flew to the bookshelf, landing on a dark-covered volume, a treatise on investments. "Here." "Secret," chirped the parrot, tapping its beak on the spine. Arthur approached, took out the book. It was heavy, but seemed ordinary. Opening it, he realized the pages were hollowed out, forming a secret compartment. Inside, there was no money or jewelry, but a small leather-bound diary and some faded photographs. Arthur's heart leaped. He picked up the diary, his hands sweating. The photos were of Sophia, small, smiling, in settings he didn't recognize, with an unknown woman who appeared to be a nanny. The most recent showed Sophia a little older, but with a sad look, in a simple room, very different from the mansion's luxury. Tears blurred his vision. Sophia was alive. The proof was there, palpable. He opened the diary. The handwriting was Helena's. The first pages were cold, calculating notes about the child's disposition, the logistics of the separation, and the plan to fake the accident. Arthur felt his stomach churn. The coldness of the words was shocking, inhuman. Helena had not only taken her away, she hated her, saw Sophia as a nuisance to her life of freedom and luxury. In one of the last entries, dated a few months ago, Helena wrote about the country house, mentioning the need to reinforce security and ensure no one found her. The country house, the one that had been under renovation for years, where Helena went alone so often. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place with a searing pain. Sophia was there, trapped, perhaps on that very property. The anger, previously a contained fire, now exploded in his chest. How could he have been so blind, so naive? The pain of betrayal was deep, but the image of Sophia, alive and suffering, was what truly propelled him. He needed to rescue her. There was no more time for hesitation, for dissimulation. Helena's plan was an abyss of cruelty, and Arthur felt guilty for not having seen it sooner. He carefully put away the diary and photos, closing the secret compartment and replacing the book on the shelf. The office door was closed with the same care, the key returned to its place. Arthur left, Kiko still on his shoulder, his face pale, but his eyes now burning with fierce determination. The country house, that's where he would go. The truth had been revealed, and justice finally would be served. Arthur closed the office door with a care that bordered on sacrilege, the key back in its discreet place. The diary and photos were now safe in his own inner pocket, weighing like stones, but also like the most precious of hopes. Kiko, still on his shoulder, seemed to sense the change in atmosphere, the shiver of urgency that now enveloped Arthur. His eyes, once clouded with pain and disbelief, burned with icy resolve. There was no more room for blind grief, only for action. He needed to be quick, but invisible. Helena could return at any moment, and the discovery of the diary would be her sentence. Arthur walked to his own office, a more austere and functional space, where technology and discretion were paramount. He picked up the phone, dialing the number of the private detective, his old college colleague, who had promised help. The voice on the other end was calm and professional. "I need you now, Marcos. It's about the delicate family matter I mentioned. I have crucial information. A property, my parents' country house, which has been under renovation for years. I need you to check the security discreetly and urgently. And I need a plan to get in there without alerting anyone." Arthur spoke in a low voice, almost a whisper, but the intensity of his words was palpable. Marcos, on the other end of the line, understood the gravity and promised to act immediately. While Marcos organized the logistics, Arthur felt his heart tighten with a mix of guilt and anticipation. How could he have allowed Helena to deceive him for so long? The image of Sophia, with that sad look in the photos, was a dagger in his chest. The coldness of Helena's notes, the way she referred to her own daughter as a nuisance, was something he would never be able to forgive. But guilt would not paralyze him, it would propel him. He needed to leave the mansion without arousing suspicion. Helena would be busy with her social engagements, but Arthur's presence at home, especially after an accident with a glass, could be a point of attention. He decided to use the excuse of an urgent business trip, something common in his Tycoon routine. He packed a small bag, putting in only the essentials, and Helena's diary, which he would keep as irrefutable proof. Kiko flew from Arthur's shoulder to his usual perch, watching him with unusual seriousness. "Sophia, waiting," chirped the parrot, almost like a blessing. Arthur smiled slightly, a tense smile but full of gratitude. "Yes, Kiko, she's waiting, and we're going to get her out of there." As he went downstairs, Arthur found Helena in the living room, flipping through a fashion magazine with calculated indifference. She raised her blue eyes, a shadow of curiosity on her face. "Going somewhere, dear?" she asked, her voice soft as always, but with a tone that Arthur now perceived as veiled scrutiny. "Yes, an urgent company matter. I'll have to spend the night out. Don't wait up for me," Arthur replied, keeping his voice firm. Though inside he felt a lump in his throat. He approached, gave her a quick, superficial kiss on the forehead, a gesture that felt like a betrayal to him, but a formality to her. Helena merely nodded, returning to her magazine, her expression unchanged. Her coldness was an abyss. Arthur left the mansion, the night air enveloping him like a cloak of freedom and responsibility. The car was already waiting for him. As the driver followed the winding road, moving away from the deceptive opulence of the mansion, Arthur looked into the darkness of the night. His mind was focused on Sophia, on the promise of reunion, on the justice that needed to be done. The journey would be long and dangerous, but the image of his daughter alive was the light guiding his way. He knew he was about to dismantle not just a lie, but an entire life built on cruelty. The truth, at last, was on its way. The truth, at last, was on its way, Arthur repeated in his mind as the car glided down the dark road. The opulence of the mansion faded behind them, replaced by the quiet of the night that enveloped his thoughts. Helena's diary, a cold weight in his inner pocket, was the most painful and yet the most precious proof. Each beat of his heart seemed to echo Sophia's name, the image of his daughter, now vivid and urgent. He felt the weight of guilt for having been so blind, but this guilt, instead of paralyzing him, ignited a flame of icy determination. His cell phone vibrated, startling him. It was Marcos. Arthur answered, his voice low, but with anticipation. "Marcos, any news? Have you reached the property?" "Arthur, yes, I'm here. I managed to bypass the most obvious security systems, but there's something strange. The house seems uninhabited. There are no recent signs of human occupation, no trace of a child. The dust is thick, the furniture covered with white sheets. It's as if it's been abandoned for months, maybe years." Marcos's words hit Arthur like a punch to the stomach. Uninhabited, abandoned. His heart, which had been beating with hope, now seemed to have stopped. What? But the diary. Helena's notes. She talked about reinforcing security, about ensuring no one found her, and that was just a few months ago. "I have the dates here." Arthur's voice, previously controlled, now trembled with contained fury. "I know, Arthur. That's what doesn't make sense. I've searched every corner, every room. There are no toys, no children's clothes, not even a recent scratch on the walls. The only unusual thing I found was a secret compartment under the floorboards of one of the bedrooms. Inside, only some old letters and a locket. Nothing to indicate Sophia's presence. Nothing that belongs to her." Marco seemed as perplexed as Arthur, his voice denoting frustration. A knot tightened in Arthur's throat. If Sophia wasn't there, where could she be? Helena had deceived him again, Or perhaps the diary was just part of an even more intricate and cruel plan. Anger bubbled in his chest, mixed with despair. He had rushed, believing the country house was the final answer. But Helena was more cunning than he imagined. Had she anticipated his move, or was there another place, an even more secret hiding spot? Marcos, keep looking. Every detail, no matter how small. And don't touch anything, just observe. I'm on my way, I'll be there in less than an hour. Arthur hung up, his hand trembling. The driver, discreet, noticed the abrupt change in the Tycoon's demeanor, but remained silent, focused on the road. Arthur leaned back in the leather seat, his mind in a whirlwind. The country house was a false lead, a cruel diversion. Helena was not just a dissembling woman, she was a strategist of evil, capable of manipulating every step. He had underestimated her capacity for cruelty. The image of Sophia, now distant and vulnerable, made his chest ache. Hope, which had rekindled with the discovery of the diary, now seemed like a flickering flame, threatening to go out. But Arthur would not surrender. The promise he had made to Kiko, to himself, and especially to Sophia, was unbreakable. He took the diary from his pocket, flipping through the pages again under the car's interior light, searching for a clue that might have escaped him. There was something more, he was sure, a detail, a word, a name. Helena could not be perfect in her monstrosity. He needed to find the flaw, the weak point in her diabolical plan. The journey to rescue Sophia had become even more complex and dangerous, but Arthur's determination was unshakable. He would not rest until he found his daughter. The car stopped smoothly before the rusty gates of the old country house. The darkness of the night was almost total, and the only light came from the vehicle's headlights, which illuminated the gloomy, ivy-covered facade, revealing an image of abandonment that tightened Arthur's heart. He got out, feeling the cold dawn air cut his skin, a reflection of the coldness he felt inside. Marcos was waiting for him, a tall, serious figure with a flashlight in his hand. Their eyes met, and Marcos's frustration mirrored Arthur's. Nothing, Arthur. Absolutely nothing. It's as if time stopped here years ago, as if no one lives or has lived here recently. Arthur nodded, his throat tight with a mix of disappointment and anger. He walked towards the main door, which Marcos had left ajar. The smell of mold and abandonment was strong, and every step echoed in the sepulchral silence of that place that should have been a refuge, but was only a tomb of hopes. He went upstairs, the steps creaking under his weight, and entered the room where Marcos had found the secret compartment. The floorboards were lifted, revealing the small, empty, dusty space. The old letters and the locket Marcos had mentioned were on a dusty dresser. Arthur picked up the locket, a simple silver object with an almost faded engraving. S.A. 1999. Sophia's initials and her birth year, but it wasn't hers. He remembered giving his daughter a different locket, one with a small ruby. This one belonged to someone else, perhaps a distant relative who once lived there. A false lead that Helena, with her calculating cruelty, might have planted. Despair threatened to engulf him, an icy wave that seemed to crush his soul. He had staked everything on this clue, and it had crumbled to dust, leaving him even more lost. Kiko, who had been discreetly brought in a small cage, was now on his shoulder, observing the surroundings with his intelligent, curious eyes. Suddenly the parrot flew to a corner of the room, where an old wooden dresser stood against the wall, and began to tap its beak insistently on one of the drawers. "Here, smell, Sophia," chirped Kiko, with a clarity that made Arthur's heart race. Arthur approached, hope rekindling like a stubborn ember amidst the ashes. The drawer was locked, resisting. Marcos, with his precision tools, skillfully opened it. Inside, there was only a small silk scarf, delicately embroidered with a fleur-de-lis, and a crumpled child's drawing. The scarf had a faint floral scent, different from Helena's, and the drawing was of a girl with a parrot, signed with a crooked, childish S. Arthur picked up the scarf, the faint scent of lavender bringing a pang of almost forgotten memory. It wasn't Sophia's perfume, but it was a familiar scent from his childhood, from his home. The drawing. It was Sophia's. There was no doubt. She had drawn Kiko, her faithful friend. But the scarf. He remembered the housekeeper, Donna Lucia, who always wore a scarf with that same perfume and a similar embroidery. Donna Lucia. She had a house in a small village nearby, where she went on weekends, a place Helena always dismissed her from when she went to the country house, saying she preferred privacy. A new thread of hope, tenuous but real, emerged, tearing through the darkness of despair. Helena wouldn't keep her here, but perhaps Donna Lucia knew something, or was even involved, perhaps coerced by his wife's cunning. The country house was not the captivity, but a meeting point, a place for Helena to leave instructions or supplies, a link in the chain of her cruelty. The diary. He picked it up again, rereading the last entries with renewed attention. Ensure no one finds her. Lucia's discretion is essential. Lucia. The reference was there, clear as day, but he had ignored it, focused only on the physical property. Arthur felt a shiver. The truth was closer than he imagined, hidden in plain sight, requiring only a closer look and a more open heart. He looked at Marcos, his eyes shining with a new intensity and a determination that seemed forged in steel. Marcos, we have a new plan. I need you to investigate Donna Lucia, her house, her movements, and I need a discreet car, immediately. I'm going there. Arthur's voice was firm, laden with unshakable determination. The flame of hope, once flickering, now burned with full force in his chest. Sophia was not lost. He would find her, no matter the cost. Arthur looked at Marcos, his eyes shining with a new intensity and a determination that seemed forged in steel. Marcos, we have a new plan. I need you to investigate Donna Lucia, her house, her movements, and I need a discreet car, immediately. I'm going there. Arthur's voice was firm, laden with unshakable determination. The flame of hope, once flickering, now burned with full force in his chest. Sophia was not lost. He would find her, no matter the cost. Marcos nodded, the seriousness on his face reflecting the gravity of the situation. As the detective made the necessary calls to arrange the vehicle and begin the investigation into Donna Lucia, Arthur felt the adrenaline course through his veins. The disappointment at the country house had been a blow, but the new clue, brought by Kiko's instinct and the memory of a familiar scent, was a rebirth of hope. He picked up Kiko, who nestled on his shoulder, and walked towards the car Marcos had provided, an ordinary sedan, without any ostentation, perfect for discretion. The driver, a trusted man of Marcos, was already waiting. The journey to the small village where Donna Lucia lived was tense. Arthur mentally reviewed every detail of Helena's diary, every word from Kiko, searching for more pieces of the puzzle. The sun began to rise, painting the sky, but Arthur barely noticed the beauty of the dawn. His mind was fixed on Sophia, on the girl he believed he had lost, and who was now so close. The guilt for his blindness still gnawed at him, but the urgency to rescue her was a fire that consumed any hesitation. He clutched Helena's diary in his hands, the leather cover seeming to burn his skin. They arrived at the village. It was a picturesque place, with simple houses and flowery gardens, a stark contrast to the cold opulence of Arthur's mansion. Donna Lucia's house was modest, with whitewashed walls and a small wooden gate. A faint light shone in the kitchen window, indicating she was already awake. Arthur felt his heart pound. It was time. He got out of the car, Kiko still on his shoulder, and walked to the door. He knocked softly. The door opened a few seconds later, revealing Donna Lucia, a middle-aged woman with grey hair tied in a bun and a kitchen apron. Her eyes, once warm, widened in surprise and then in terror at the sight of Arthur. She put a hand to her mouth, a sob caught in her throat. "Mr. Arthur, what are you doing here?" Her voice was a trembling whisper. Arthur looked at her, pain and anger mixed in his gaze. "Donna Lucia, we need to talk. It's about Sophia." The name of his daughter seemed to break the last barrier of her composure. Tears welled up in the housekeeper's eyes, streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. She stepped back, making room for Arthur to enter. The house was small, but impeccably clean, with the smell of fresh coffee and homemade bread. Kiko flew from Arthur's shoulder to a shelf, observing the scene in silence. "I know everything, Donna Lucia. I know Sophia is alive, and I know Helena is keeping her somewhere. Her diary, the photos. Kiko showed me the scarf with your perfume at the country house." Arthur spoke in a controlled voice, but the intensity of his words was a whip. Donna Lucia collapsed into a chair, covering her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Arthur. I swear I didn't want to. She threatened me, threatened my family, said if I told my grandchildren would be harmed." The words came out between sobs, a river of despair and guilt. Arthur knelt before her, taking her hands. "Where is she, Donna Lucia? Where is my daughter?" His eyes pleaded. Donna Lucia raised her face, her eyes red and swollen. "She's in a small house, Mr. Arthur, on the outskirts of the neighboring town, in a more secluded neighborhood. Helena keeps her there with a woman she hired, a nurse who takes care of her and keeps her isolated. I went there once a week, took supplies, some things Sophia asked for. Helena forced me to say that you had forgotten her, that you didn't want her anymore." With each word, Arthur's heart broke and rebuilt itself with renewed fury. Helena's cruelty was boundless. He felt a knot in his throat, but the image of Sophia, alone and believing herself abandoned, propelled him. "What's the address, Donna Lucia? I need to go now." The trembling housekeeper gave him the information, detailing the street, the number, and even describing the house's facade. She seemed relieved to have finally unburdened herself, but fear was still present in her eyes. Arthur stood up, his mind already tracing the next step. "Donna Lucia, you did what you could. Now I need you to trust me. Don't say anything to Helena. Just continue as if nothing happened. Marcos, my detective, will protect you." He squeezed her hand, a gesture of understanding and forgiveness. The housekeeper nodded, still crying, but with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Arthur left the house, Kiko returning to his shoulder. The morning light now illuminated the village, and hope, once an ember, was now a burning bonfire in his chest. Sophia was so close. Justice at last was within his grasp. Arthur got into the discreet car, his heart pounding frantically. Kiko, on his shoulder, shared the urgency, eyes fixed on the road. The morning light hastened him, reminding him of lost time. He clutched Helena's diary to his chest, its pages revealing his wife's cruelty and the fragility of perception. Guilt was a burden, but Sophia's proximity was a balm, a promise of redemption. The drive to the neighboring town was a blur of anxiety. Arthur watched the landscape, every obstacle between him and his daughter. He imagined Sophia, what she would think of him after Helena's lies. The pain of this manipulation was unbearable. He needed to undo years of deception. They arrived at the secluded neighborhood, narrow streets and modest houses. The driver stopped a safe distance from the house Donna Lucia had described. It was a simple building with an unkempt garden and closed curtains. No ostentation, no clue to the secret. Arthur felt a shiver. Helena's discretion was terrifying. He got out of the car, his breath caught. Kiko flew ahead, landing on Arthur's shoulder and pointing to the house. "Sophia, There, chirped the parrot, with a certainty that sent shivers down Arthur's spine. It was the confirmation he needed. With firm but cautious steps, he approached the door, the diary in his hands, the irrefutable proof. He knocked softly. The silence seemed eternal. The door opened. A middle-aged woman with a tired face and eyes wide with surprise and fear appeared. It was the nurse Dona Lucia had mentioned. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice low and hesitant. Arthur looked her in the eyes, his voice laden with authority. "I am Arthur, and I know Sophia is here." The woman paled. Her hands trembled. She tried to close the door, but Arthur stopped her with a firm gesture, without violence, only with the strength of his determination. "Don't try to deceive me. I have proof. Helena's diary. I know everything." Arthur's words broke the woman's resistance. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she stepped back, making room. "Come in, sir, please." The house was small but clean. The smell of baked cookies hung in the air, a childish aroma that pierced Arthur's heart. He saw toys on the floor. A colorful drawing stuck to the refrigerator, and then he saw her. Sitting on a rug, playing with blocks, was Sophia. Brown hair fell over her shoulders, and she wore a simple, colorful dress. She raised her head at the sound of footsteps, her blue eyes, identical to Arthur's, widening in astonishment. The world stopped. Arthur felt the air leave him, an overwhelming wave of love, relief, and pain hitting him. "Sophia," he whispered, his voice choked. The girl looked at him, confused. Then a small smile appeared on her lips, hesitant. Kiko flew from Arthur's shoulder, landing softly near Sophia, who recognized him immediately. "Kiko!" she exclaimed, her eyes shining. The parrot chirped, "Daddy, Sophia, free." Arthur knelt, extending his arms. "My daughter, my love." Sophia hesitated, then ran to him, her arms wrapping around his neck. Arthur held her tight, tears streaming down his face. The scent of childhood filled his senses. It was real. She was alive in his arms. The nurse watched the scene, crying silently, guilt and relief etched on her face. The rescue had begun. The rescue had begun. Arthur held Sophia with all his strength, fearing she would disappear again. The sweet scent of her hair, the warmth of her small body were the real proof of the nightmare's end. Tears rolled, deep relief tearing away years of pain. Sophia, at first confused, soon felt her father's security and unconditional love. Kiko, on Arthur's shoulder, chirped softly, blessing the reunion. The nurse Clara watched, hands covering her mouth, eyes moist. The guilt that tormented her seemed to find escape. Arthur, embracing Sophia, looked at Clara, his voice choked but firm. "Clara, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. I don't blame you for coercion, but I need the truth to protect Sophia and ensure Helena pays." Clara nodded, wiping away tears. "Helena approached me almost 3 years ago, Mr. Arthur. She said Sophia was problematic, needed a quiet, isolated place, and that you didn't have time. She offered a lot to take care of her here, away from everything. At first, I believed her, but I realized the cruelty. She came rarely, with strict orders. Sophia was to have no outside contact, and I was to say you had forgotten her. I tried to soften it, I swear. I told her stories about you and Kiko, showed her old photos. But she always threatened me, saying my family would be harmed." Clara's lament was fear and regret. Arthur felt his blood boil with Helena's malice. Sophia, in his arms, absorbed the tension, her blue eyes alternating between her father and Clara. He kissed her forehead, promising never to let her suffer again. "Clara, you helped me. That matters. Come with us. Your safety will be guaranteed, and your testimony crucial." Clara hesitated, fear visible, but Arthur's determination and Sophia's presence convinced her. Yes, Mr. Arthur, I will. I'll do whatever it takes. Arthur stood up, Sophia in his lap. We need to leave immediately. Marcos is waiting with a safe car. He looked at Sophia, who stared at him with childlike curiosity. My love, we're going to a safe place. Daddy will take care of you. Sophia merely nodded, a small smile appearing. Her trust, after so long, broke Arthur's heart and filled him with new purpose. He picked up Sophia's teddy bear, the drawing of Kiko, and Clara gathered her belongings. As they left, the morning light was already full. Arthur felt a new day beginning for him and Sophia. Marcos's discreet car was waiting for them. Arthur placed Sophia in the back seat, comfortable and safe. Kiko flew to the front. Clara got in, her face lighter, as if an immense weight had been lifted. Arthur sat beside Sophia, holding her small hand. The journey back would be the beginning of a new life and reconstruction. He knew Helena would try everything to get away with it. But now he had Sophia, the truth and the determination of a father who had found her. Justice would be served, not only for Sophia, but for everyone Helena had manipulated and hurt. The path would be arduous, but Sophia's presence, alive and by his side, was the strength to face any challenge. Arthur held Sophia's hand, her warmth a firm anchor amidst the storm of emotions. The scent of lavender and the sweet aroma of his daughter's hair mingled in his mind, a bittersweet symphony of relief and pain. Kiko, on his shoulder, chirped softly, a lament and a muffled victory song, understanding the gravity and the joy. Sophia, nestled close, looked out the window, her blue eyes distant, processing the avalanche of events. Clara, in the front seat, remained silent, her face tense, but with a glimpse of relief at having freed herself. Arthur felt a searing guilt for every day apart, but the pain turned into unshakable strength to protect her and seek justice. He took out his cell phone, dialing Marcos, his hand steady. Marcos, prepare everything down to the smallest detail. Helena will be confronted at the mansion with all the irrefutable evidence. The diary, Clara's testimony, every fragment of the truth. Sophia needs to be safe. Prepare a discreet and cozy room for her, away from any commotion. She doesn't need to see. Arthur's voice was pain and steel. Marcos confirmed, serious. Understood. The police are already on their way to ensure safety and legality. Helena will have nowhere to run. Arthur nodded, hanging up. Helena's web of lies was about to collapse. He turned to Sophia, who watched him with curiosity. My love, do you remember our house? The garden where Kiko used to fly? Sophia tilted her head, a small, hesitant smile. I remember Kiko, and Daddy reading stories. The mention brought sweetness and nostalgia to Arthur's heart, a reminder of a distant time. Yes, Daddy will read many stories now every day, and we'll play a lot in the garden. You'll never be alone or feel forgotten again. He kissed her forehead, feeling the softness of her hair. Her trust, after so much pain, was a precious gift and a promise of healing. Clara, in the front seat, turned around. Mr. Arthur, I'm so sorry for everything. I swear I tried to be kind to Sophia. Arthur nodded, understanding. I know, Clara, I'm grateful. Your testimony will be crucial in uncovering the truth and ensuring justice. The road shortened, the tension growing. The mansion, once a symbol of his perfect life, rose on the horizon as the stage for a final battle. The morning sun illuminated the facade, but for Arthur, the most important light was that emanating from Sophia. In his arms, the promise of a new beginning. He clutched Helena's diary, feeling the weight of the truth. Justice was just moments away. The car slowed, turning into the oak-lined driveway that led to the entrance. The grand wooden door, which he had crossed so many times without thought, now represented the threshold between a dark past and an uncertain future, yet filled with hope. Arthur took a deep breath, his heart pounding like a war drum. The moment had arrived. He looked at Sophia, who now hugged him tighter, sensing the tension and seeking refuge. Her presence was his driving force, his reason for being. He had his daughter back, and nothing else mattered. And now Helena would pay for every tear, every day of suffering she had caused. As they stopped before the mansion, Arthur saw the police cars discreetly parked, and Marcos was already waiting at the door, his face serious. Two officers, with firm expressions, stood beside him. Arthur got out of the car, Sophia still in his arms. Kiko perched on his shoulder, observing everything with unusual attention. "Marcos, take Sophia to the room you prepared. No one should disturb her. Clara, please accompany her and stay with her," Arthur said, his voice low but laden with authority. Clara, with a nod, took Sophia, who, though confused, seemed to accept the new protective figure. The girl cast a last glance at her father. A mix of curiosity and newfound trust, Arthur handed Kiko to Marcos. "He needs to be present. He's the most important witness." Marcos nodded, holding the parrot carefully. With the officers by his side, Arthur entered the mansion. The silence was heavy, broken only by footsteps on the cold marble. Helena was in the living room, sitting elegantly, sipping tea, as if nothing were happening. Her eyes, cold and calculating, widened slightly at the sight of Arthur and the police. A forced smile appeared on her lips. "Arthur, what is the meaning of this? And who are these men?" Her voice was melodic, but with a hint of irritation. Arthur was not swayed by her facade. "Helena, the game is over. I know everything." He held out the diary, which he clutched firmly. "I know Sophia is alive, and I know you kept her captive, faking her death." The air in the room seemed to freeze. Helena's smile faltered, but she quickly recomposed herself. "What are you talking about, Arthur? Sophia is dead. You're delirious with grief." Her voice tried to sound convincing, but there was an almost imperceptible tremor. Marcos entered with Clara and Kiko. The sight of Clara, standing, her eyes fixed on Helena, was a blow to the woman. Kiko, on Marcos's shoulder, chirped loudly, "Helena, bad. Sophia trapped. Helena bad." The parrot's voice echoed in the room, laden with shocking clarity. Helena paled, her face losing color. "This woman is a liar, and that bird. What does it know?" She tried to stand up, but one of the officers gestured for her to remain seated. "Her diary, Helena, details every step of your cruelty. The threats to Donna Lucia, to Clara, the plans to get rid of Sophia." Arthur continued, his voice now a thunder. "Clara, please, tell the truth." Clara, though still trembling, found the courage. She narrated the years of captivity, Helena's orders, the threats to her family. Every word was a stab at Helena's armor. The wife's mask of coldness began to crack, revealing a glimpse of panic and hatred. "You are a monster, Helena. You deceived me, made me believe my daughter was dead, all for money and freedom," Arthur said, the pain in his voice mixed with righteous fury. "But the truth always finds its way. Sophia is safe now, and you will pay for your crimes." The officers approached Helena. She cowered, her haughty pose broken, her eyes flashing with impotent rage. "You'll regret this, Arthur. I didn't do anything." Her voice, once melodic, was now a hoarse, desperate scream. But no one believed her. The evidence was irrefutable. The officers escorted her out of the mansion, her protests echoing through the corridors, each word losing strength as they moved away. The door closed, and a deep but different silence filled the space. It was the silence of justice, of truth, that had finally prevailed. Arthur felt an immense weight lifted from his shoulders. He looked at Marcos, who nodded, a smile of relief on his face. Arthur went upstairs, his heart light, but still with the urgency to see Sophia. He found her in a cozy room, painted in soft tones, with toys and a small storybook on the bedside table. Sophia was sitting on the bed, with Clara beside her, looking at a photo album Clara had found. Seeing Arthur, she smiled, a genuine, light-filled smile. He knelt beside her, hugging her again. "My love, you are safe, forever." Arthur's tears were now of pure joy. The path to healing would be long, but the family at last was reunited under the light of truth and unconditional love. Arthur's tears were now of pure joy. The path to healing would be long, but the family at last was reunited under the light of truth and unconditional love. He held Sophia tight in his arms, feeling the small body tremble slightly, no longer from fear, but from an emotion he hoped was the beginning of trust. Kiko, on Arthur's shoulder, chirped softly like a silent guardian, witnessing the rebirth of that connection. Clara, with a gentle smile and moist eyes, watched the scene, feeling the weight of guilt finally dissipate, replaced by a profound relief. In the days that followed, the mansion, once a stage of lies and silent pain, transformed into a home of healing and rediscovery. Sophia, at first, was a child of few words, her blue eyes still holding the shadow of isolation. Arthur dedicated every moment to her. They spent hours in the garden, where Kiko flew freely, making the girl laugh with his acrobatics and repetitions of affectionate phrases. Arthur read to her, told her stories, and patiently answered every question, no matter how simple. He took her for walks, showing her the world Helena had tried to hide. Each day, Sophia blossomed a little more. Her smile became more frequent, her laughter more unrestrained. Helena, in turn, faced the consequences of her actions. The irrefutable evidence, the diary, the testimonies of Clara and Donna Lucia, and Sophia's undeniable presence ensured that justice was served. She was tried and convicted, paying for her cruelty and manipulation. Arthur felt no joy in her misfortune, only the certainty that Sophia was safe and that the truth had prevailed. The fortune, which Helena so coveted, was used to secure Sophia's future and to support institutions that helped vulnerable children, a gesture of altruism that Arthur felt was true redemption. Clara and Donna Lucia, free from fear and coercion, found new purpose. Clara, with Arthur's support, returned to working with children, now in an environment of love and care, where her natural kindness could flourish. Donna Lucia, after a period of much-needed rest and recovery, was invited to return to the mansion, but this time as a figure of trust and affection for Sophia, a surrogate grandmother whom the girl learned to love. Arthur, the tycoon who once found himself blinded by pain and manipulation, emerged transformed. He learned that true wealth was not in his businesses or his assets, but in the unconditional love he felt for his daughter. His vigilance against evil became an intrinsic part of his being, but also his capacity to forgive and rebuild. He and Sophia, together, created a new family, a home where truth was the foundation, love the cornerstone, and Kiko, the talking parrot, the constant reminder that hope can emerge from the most unexpected places. Sophia grew up surrounded by love and security, a vibrant and lively girl with a sparkle in her eyes that reflected the joy of being truly free. The memory of the painful past would never completely disappear, but it would always be overcome by the strength of the present and the promise of a bright future. Arthur, watching her play in the garden with Kiko, felt his heart overflow with gratitude. Life, with all its trials, had taught him the most valuable lesson. True family is built on truth, unconditional love, and the resilience of the human spirit. Life, with all its trials, had taught him the most valuable lesson. True family is built on truth, unconditional love, and the resilience of the human spirit. Arthur, now free from the shadows of deceit, embraced this truth with every fiber of his being. The grand mansion, once a symbol of his superficial success and hidden sorrow, was now a sanctuary of genuine affection and laughter. Sophia, no longer a prisoner of silence, blossomed into a vibrant and curious child. Her days were filled with the simple joys Helena had denied her, painting colorful pictures, building towering block castles, and most importantly, sharing endless stories and laughter with her father. Kiko, always the vigilant companion, remained a central figure in their new life. He often perched on Sophia's shoulder as she explored the sprawling garden, mimicking her squeals of delight or repeating phrases Arthur had taught him like, "Sophia, my love." The parrot's presence was a constant, gentle reminder of the courage it took to uncover the truth, and a testament to the unexpected ways love can find its voice. Arthur found immense solace in these moments, watching his daughter thrive. His guilt, though a scar that would always remain, no longer paralyzed him. Instead, it fueled his determination to be the best father possible, ensuring Sophia felt loved and secure every single day. Clara, having bravely testified against Helena, chose to remain close. Arthur, grateful for her kindness towards Sophia during her captivity, offered her a position that allowed her to continue caring for children, but this time in an environment of warmth and respect. She became a cherished presence in Sophia's life, a gentle aunt figure who understood the nuances of the girl's past and helped nurture her healing. Donna Lucia also found her place. After a much-needed period of rest, she accepted Arthur's invitation to live at the mansion, filling the void of a grandmother's love, sharing her wisdom and warmth, and baking the most delicious cookies Sophia had ever tasted. The house, once echoing Helena's cold ambition, now resonated with the comforting sounds of a bustling, loving home. Helena, stripped of her facade and fortune, faced the full weight of her actions. Her conviction served as a stark reminder that no amount of wealth or manipulation could escape the reach of justice. Arthur ensured that a significant portion of his assets, once destined to be Helena's playground, was redirected to support foundations dedicated to protecting vulnerable children and advocating for their rights. This act of altruism became a pillar of his new purpose, transforming his business empire into a force for good, a legacy of compassion rather than mere profit. Arthur often reflected on the journey. He had been a man blinded by grief and manipulated by a cruel heart. But through the unwavering loyalty of a parrot, the quiet courage of a few good souls, and the rediscovery of his daughter, he had found his true north. He learned that true strength lay not in power or control, but in vulnerability, in admitting mistakes, and in fighting for those he loved. Sophia, now a bright-eyed girl whose laughter filled the corridors, was his greatest teacher. Her resilience, her capacity for joy after so much darkness, was a daily miracle. Their family, unconventional yet profoundly real, was built on the foundation of honesty and an unwavering commitment to one another. Each night, as Arthur tucked Sophia into bed, Kiko often perched nearby, a silent guardian. He would whisper, "Daddy loves you, Sophia," and Sophia, with a radiant smile, would hug her father tight. Arthur knew that while the world might present new challenges, they would face them together, a united front, forged in truth and bound by an unbreakable love. The past was a painful memory, but the future, bright and full of promise, was theirs to build, hand in hand, heart to heart.